Okay, well, thank you, panel. Let me turn to the audience now for questions. We have a few minutes. Please raise your hand if you're interested in putting a question to the panel, and then tell us your name and where you come from. Any takers?
Anyone awake?
I think by default I would ask Mark, meet Treadwell.
No, hand in the back.
We have one in the back. Okay, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sam. I'm a master's student here, and I had a question for Senator Murkowski. Do you see a way for Alaskan communities that are energy vulnerable to move forward without relying on fossil fuels?
Yes, we have communities, as I mentioned, that are, I believe, innovators and pioneers in the way that they are providing for their energy needs. And you look at the various microgrids, each one is unique depending on where they are. So maybe it's a little bit of wind coupled with perhaps river power generation to meet communities' needs of a few hundred people. The fact that we are moving these communities off of their current power generation, which is diesel power generation, which I think we would all agree is not sustainable in anybody's world. And so yes, I think that it absolutely is possible to do that given the assets that they have. But it is not cheap. And so how we are able to help facilitate this within these respective regions, given the assets that they have. That, when I say it's not cheap, the way that Alaska has been able to provide for itself as a state has been its oil wealth that has allowed us to have a resource that we can tap into to help facilitate that transition to a more clean energy future and less reliant on oil. But that has been our base. But the direction that we have taken is one that I think not only in the United States can we look to, but whether it's African nations that are really very challenged with meeting their energy needs can look to some of the models and the examples that Alaska is setting. So thank you for that, Sam.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah, gentleman in the back there, red. Gentleman in red.
Yes, my name is Oddur Sigurðsson from the geologist at the Met Office in Iceland. It's getting more and more obvious that mankind needs to cut down on its activity on Earth. Yet every government is aiming for economic growth. Is there anywhere in the world a planning of how to meet returning of the economic growth? If not made by ourselves, it'll be turned up on us somehow.
So who is this question for, please?
Maybe Senator Whitehouse.
Oh, good. I'm afraid that's really too big a question for me. And we have to, I think, address in bite-sized pieces what we have in front of us. And the first thing we have is a fossil fuel emissions problem that is out of control and that is destroying the planet and that is supported by extremely bad industry political behavior, and cleaning up the politics so that that control doesn't exist any longer and we actually have real popular decision-making. And solving the emissions problem, I think, is the critical first step. And I think the push towards 30% of land and 30% of oceans being permanently protected is a way of pushing back against the encroachment of humankind. But we do have to be very attentive to this, and I don't have answers beyond what I can do right now in front of me. One of the things that I think of often is a graphic depiction of the mammal population of the Earth. And you can look it up on your cell phone, Google it. And there are lots of little human bodies, and there are enormous numbers of cattle bodies, and goat bodies, and sheep bodies, and pig bodies. And then you get to mammal wildlife that still exists. And it's a tiny little box down in the corner. And we have terrible systems in place for protecting what remains of the Earth's wildlife and wild places. And I think if we stop the adverse pressure and change systems so that we much better protect the remaining resources that we have, we can try to find the balance that you've asked about. And I unfortunately don't have a better answer than that.
Maybe a quick comment from Heiðar.
Yeah, maybe if I can try to give my opinion to this good question. You know, there are two quotes that come to mind. It's Saudi oil minister that said the Stone Age did not come to an end because we ran out of stones. Likewise, the oil age will not come to an end because we run out of oil. We simply transition. And that's exactly what we're doing now. Another quote is Richard Attenborough. He said, well, you need to either be mad or an economist, I'm actually an economist, to think that you can have endless growth. But that's the Malthusian fallacy in economics. And if we look towards what we're doing, some people think you can only do more with more. So to have economic growth, you need to tap more and more and more resources. That's the Malthusian fallacy. And so to solve this, we need to do less with less. But technology has proven, just like in the case with the Stone Age, that you can actually do more with less. And the Arctic is a living example of how we have been doing more and more with less and less. So I'm an optimist, and economic history tells us we should be as well.